Hi, I'm Matt, one half of Mud and Blood, a podcast dark and grim. Our podcast focuses on tabletop role-playing games, which are dark, gritty, grim, words like that. Not solely focused on the fantasy genre, but also looking at pretty much anything that fits that bill. So we don't tend to focus on heroic games, but more on realistic and gritty ones. Anyway, this is our first video to go along with our audio-only podcast, and basically this is to give a visual review of Conan 2d20 by Modiphius, which is the book that we've reviewed this week. This is a very cool book, and basically we just want to show off the artwork, the layout, the presentation of the book to go along with the actual review. So you can catch our full audio review on our podcast, which you can find at the URL mbcast.co/8. You can also find it through any podcast playing app of your choice. But yeah, anyway, without any further ado, let's get on with this review. Okay, let's do this review. Here we have our book, Conan, Adventures in an Age Undreamed Of, 2d20 system by Modiphius Entertainment. So let's talk format before we get into the artwork and the layout and the rest of it. So layout-wise, this is a fairly full-size book. It actually measures 8.5 inches by 11 inches, and in metric that is 215 millimeters by 280 millimeters. The cover is of a very nice matte finish. You can see it doesn't reflect light, so it looks really nice to, regardless of what kind of light you're shining on it when you're reading. The artwork wraps around to the back, and the back is dark enough that they can fit a full blurb across the entire back there. Yeah, artwork on the front cover is by Brom. That's probably it for the cover. You can see it hanging out at the bottom here. There's a ribbon. There's a black ribbon that is provided with the book as well, just the one. So that kind of goes through the book in the middle, as you'd expect. The binding, it has an oversewn binding, which allows the book to lie not quite flat, but it lies reasonably flat, I would suggest, for a book that's over 400 pages. Page number wise, I haven't counted them all the way. The last numbered page is 410, and then there's probably about another 10 to 12 pages after that, so I'd say roughly 430 pages roughly, all told. End papers. It has end papers. The front end paper is a map of the Hyborian world. The map has been done by Jose Gigio, I'm not sure how you pronounce that, Gigio, Esteras. It's a really beautiful map, as you can see, and the paper for the binding is really nice and thick paper, very much matte paper, unlike the rest of the book, which is a slightly thinner paperweight, and also like like a semi-gloss. It's still matte, but it has a little bit of a shine to it, which feels very premium. But very much we have a matte end papers here on the front. On the flip side of the front end paper, we have the cover art by Brom, which is repeated again, which is nice. On the back cover, the end paper on the back is a piece of art by Fräulein Gardner, and yeah, it's this really nice piece of art. Again, same paper quality, and on the inside, it's got 2 pages of advertisements for other Modiphius products, other Modiphius role-playing games. We'll come to the character sheet later at the end. So yeah, that's kind of the format of the book. Let's talk about artwork then. So as discussed already, we have a really nice, iconic piece by Brom on the front cover, which is repeated on the inside of the front end paper. And then, yeah, I just wanted to pull your attention to this bit here on the title page. We have approximately 30 artists who have contributed to the interior artwork for this book. So there are a lot of people working on this. It does show there's a bit of variance in terms of the overall quality of the artwork, but generally speaking, it's very high quality, and no real complaints there. There are maybe a small number, probably a handful at most, pieces of art which are probably a little bit more inferior than the rest, and if they were just there on their own, they would be absolutely fine, but because the standard is so high, they kind of stand out a little bit more. So just something to kind of just mention from personal perspective. The art direction is by Misha Thomas, and yeah, really good job, Misha, on this book. So yeah, let's talk artwork. There is a piece of art on pretty much every second or third page going through the book. As you can see here. The other quick thing to talk about with art that I like, sorry, before I talk about the spreads, is when you get to the character generation section, there are 10 archetypes, which are like the classes in this game, and each of them has a full column with all the stats that you need for that archetype, along with a full piece of art for each one. So you got 4 there, 8 there, and your final 2 to make 10. And that's just a nice little touch that they've provided. It's so easy to find, and across basically only 5 pages you've got all 10 of the archetypes covered. So just a nice little touch there. So yeah, let's talk about spreads. So dotted throughout the book there are 4 spreads. So this is the first one. Conan having defeated some pigs who are lying here dead on the ground below him. This piece is by Carl Critchlow and is also the cover image for the Quick Starts book that they've released. Really nice piece. Next one, not there. I probably should have bookmarked these and make them easier to find. Here's the next piece. Again, it looks like Conan fighting some pigs, his kind of traditional enemy. Features in a lot of the books, a lot of the stories. And this piece is by an artist called Tim Truman. Okay, then we go a little bit further on. This is more of a classic piece of Conan art by a very well-known, respected Conan artist. This one features looks like a serpent summoned by some kind of sorcerer. And yeah, this one is by Sanhulian. I'm not 100% sure how you pronounce that, but it's one word, Sanhulian. It's just a really nice, evocative, kind of old-school piece of Conan art. Really nice. It's directly followed by another full spread, like the front end paper of the map. This nice map by Jose Estaras. So yeah, and the reason it's here again is because the following chapter is all about the Hyborian world, the setting chapter. Okay, we've got just one more spread to go, which is a little bit further on. Just trying to find it for you. Not quite there. Here it is. Nope. Nope. There it is. Yeah, really nice picture of a really nice painting of Conan fighting some. I guess they're savages. They're only wearing loincloths. They don't look like pigs, though. Not 100% sure what those would be. And there's some sort of scaly creature, basilisk or something, coming up out of the forest behind him. This piece is by Darren Bader, and it's also used on the front cover of the Jeweled Thrones of the Earth sourcebook, which is one of the first sourcebooks released that is full of adventures. And then, just to remind you again, the end paper has another lovely piece of art here. This piece of art, again, this is by Froylin Gardner, and it's also the cover art that's used on Conan the Barbarian sourcebook, which is all about how to have specific barbarian-styled adventures with Conan. Okay, that's the artwork. I guess the next thing to talk about is layout. So layout-wise, let's find a page that has everything we want to talk about. Here's a good one. Throughout the book, you'll see that it uses a 2-column spread, which is really nice. Two-column layout, which is really nice. It also makes very good use of call-out boxes, like you can see here, in kind of an olive color with white text. Very easy to read and kind of matches the overall feel of the book. These call-out boxes aren't always full page width. They're often within the column. Sometimes they're an entire page as well. But I feel that they're generally done very, very well. And they have a really nice aesthetic, I feel, with this kind of ripped. They have at least one, sometimes 2 edges which look like ripped parchment. In terms of parchment, you can see the background for the book has this kind of parchment-looking feel to it. It has a kind of nice off-white color, which kind of has a bit of a dirty edge effect on the edge, both edges. And I really like that. It has a really nice feeling to it. It doesn't at all detract from readability. You can still really easily read the text despite having this background on there. It's just very unassuming. It's right in the. It's just barely noticeable, but it does add a lot to the book. So really, really well done on the background there. I really like how that's been done. Also, talking about the page layout, we can see that there's these nice full double spread borders going across top and bottom page. The cool thing about these is that they change for every chapter. So you can just see as I'm flicking through down here that these page borders look different. So you can kind of, one way to see at a glance, regardless of whether you're at the top or the bottom of the, looking at the top or the bottom of the book, if you're trying to find the next chapter or previous chapter, you can just quickly flick through and just see for when that changes. And it also just looks really, really nice too. So really nice touch there. Really, really think that's been very well done. Tables, this is a good one to show. We've got basically a table on the left here and also a table on the right. Generally speaking, the tables fill up the entire width of the page. And they're not always 3 columns like this. Sometimes there's just a column with a number on it, and then a full bit of text. Depends on the table itself. But generally speaking, they're really well laid out. The rows have alternating lighter and darker row backgrounds or cell backgrounds. One of them is completely the same background color as the actual page. And what I like is that the darker one isn't too dark. You can still really easily read the text. And if you were to print this out, I think you wouldn't have any issues with being able to read the text that's in the darker rows. So yeah, really, really happy with the tables too. There's a lot of tables as you'd expect in a Conan or any role-playing game. Tables liberally used throughout in certain chapters, of course. Here's another full page one. And in fact, here's a nice place to just quickly talk about layout, the talent trees. We mentioned these in our full audio review in our podcast, but basically every skill has a talent tree. This is what they look like. You've got the first talent, and then they've got arrows showing the kind of order, the prerequisites for getting each of the following talents that come after the first one. Really easy to see at a very quick glance how they work out. And they're followed by, you can see this one here, they're followed by descriptions of each of those talents and what they do for your character. Okay, the last thing I really want to touch on with the layout is chapter headings. Chapter headings are fairly easy to see. You've just got the kind of a full width kind of ribbon going across, saying the name of the chapter. But what I also really like is on the left-hand side for every chapter, you have this this image that's kind of faded to sepia with a call-out box right in the middle that has a quote from one of the books by Robert E. Howard, one of the Conan stories by Robert E. Howard. That's just a really nice touch. Again, it gives a little bit of flavor, lore flavor to every single chapter when you come to a new one. And yeah, just a nice little touch. And the last thing I want to talk about with layout. Okay, and then just to finish this review off, the last thing we're going to look at is the character sheet, which is at the back of the book. I wouldn't recommend cutting this out because this is fully available for free on the Modiphius website. And I believe it's also available on DriveThruRPG, but certainly available for free, very easy to find. The character sheet is really lovely, as you can see. The full color one has... it's just basically tons and tons of artwork in here. It's really, really probably one of the best character sheets I've ever seen. The people who worked on it, Francesca Bayerald and Michael E. Cross. Michael E. Cross also did the entire layout and graphic design for the entire book. So I'm assuming he did the layout for the character sheet as well. And Francesca Bayerald is the actual artist who's done all the art. Although I could be wrong. But those are the 2 people who worked on it in the credits. And yeah, basically everything you need for your character really is on the first page, which I really like. You've got a little bit of belongings down here for your key belongings, gold, your stress and harm, the attacks that you do, your background, your talents, and then your attributes and skills. The additional 2 pages, so page 2 here, is more talents. Any creatures that you have that, like if you use animal handling, you might have a horse that's with you, you might have a pet saber-toothed tiger. I have no idea what you would have for a pet. I don't generally play characters with pets. But you've got space for 2 of them in here. You can write a little bit of details or skills for those creatures in there. Other attacks, so if you have more than the attacks that can fit on the first page, you can fit them in here. And then a bit of for additional belongings. And then, always nice to see a separate page for spells rather than squeezing it in on one of the first 2 pages, because usually it's only one person in the party for grittier games who plays a magic user. So if they do, not everybody needs this. It's on a separate page for them to keep track of their spells. So that's really nice. Now you might be thinking, okay, I'm not going to cut this out of the book, but I'm gonna need to print one out anyway because I sit down play a live game with my group, and we're all going to be getting our pencils out. We want to fill these in, so I don't want to spend a fortune on printing these nice color images out. Well, Modiphius has you covered because they have produced a black and white inked version of that very same character sheet, and I've printed one out here. It is in it is in letter format. So it's catering to the American audience. I'm in Europe, so this is printed on A4, and so we've got the kind of the columns on the left and the right to fit it to the page. But as you can see, all the detail is on this page from the original, the color version, and it just looks really, really nice. There's no shading at all in any of the boxes you need to fill in, so really easy to use with a pencil, and yet you still have all of the feel of the original on there. So really, really nice character sheet. If you're a bit worried about the amount of ink that's required to print all this out, I normally would say they've got you covered because they do a basic version of this as well. However, what I didn't realize when I actually printed it out for this review is that every box is shaded. So in fact, this will probably use just as much ink as this version, potentially even more. And on the flip side, if you're using a pencil for a campaign, this would be a real pain in the arse to fill in and rub out constantly. So just be aware it's there. It doesn't have all the page dressing, but it does have these filled out boxes for every single box you need to fill in. I believe there are some character sheets that have been made by the community that are truly print friendly, but I don't have any. I haven't actually looked those up for the review. So if you're interested, drop a comment in for this video, and I can look some up and provide some links. Yeah, and that's it for the review. So yeah. If you've got any questions, additional questions, or you want to discuss this video review, this visual review, I should say, then drop them in the comments below. You can also find in the description for this video all of our links on social media. We're in all the usual places. We also have a Discord server, and I would highly, highly recommend, if you're interested in this book, if you haven't already, listen to the full audio review on this week's podcast. The link for that episode is mbcast.co/8 and will also be in this description below. Okay, thanks very much for watching, and we'll catch you next time. Bye.